before, where God was getting ready to have the children of Israel cross over into their promised land, and they had to cross the Jordan River, but they didn't have a boat. So, of course, in that situation, God is telling them to do something quite naturally. We would look at it like, how is God expecting us to do this with no boat? There's absolutely no way we could do this. But God is telling them to follow Joshua, and he's going to lead Joshua. So they're following Joshua, and they get to the Jordan, and they follow the steps that God tells them to follow. And guess what happens? God stops the river, and they're able to cross on dry ground. And they did this with through obedience and not doubting what God was telling them to do, not looking at the situation itself. Because again, we would have looked at it like, we don't have a boat. There's absolutely no way we could cross over. So we're not going. It's not making any sense, God. But as they were crossing over, God had them to collect stones. Each tribe collects stones to build a memorial. So he had them collect receipts. Joshua 4:21-24 says, and he said to the Israelites, in the future, when your children ask their fathers, what is the meaning of these stones? You should tell your children, Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the water of the Jordan before you until you had crossed over, just as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, when he dried up before us until we had crossed over. This is so that all the people of the earth may know that the Lord's hand is strong, and so that you may always fear the Lord your God. God had them collect receipts through memorial stones. Why? Because miracles can fade from memories. Our faith leaks when we forget what God has already brought us through. Those stones weren't just rocks, they were receipts from God, proof of his power, reminders for future generations that God protects and provides. So, here's your challenge today. What are your stones? What can you set in place to remind you that if God did it before, he can do it again? To remember the miracles, remember the blessings, and to remember that God's not done yet.